Hopefully you won't be thinking to yourselves while you're watching this, get away from them, you...
Here is James Cameron.
You never really get an opportunity. You take an opportunity. If you're going to do something, you have to do it all the way, and you have to just put it before all other things. I don't know about you, but I'm having a really great time.
Welcome back to James Cameron 101. I'm your host, Eddie Green. Today, we are continuing our FANCAST series here on the podcast. And today we're tackling Aliens, the 1986 classic from Mr. James Cameron. And we're not doing it alone. We're going to be bringing in, I think, the foremost knowledge on this film, Ian Nathan, friend of the podcast. He, of course, wrote, directed Aliens Expanded. And, of course, he authored, James Cameron, a retrospective, Terminator Vault. He's a big Cameron fan, so that's why he's always coming back to the podcast. So let's welcome friend of the podcast, Ian.
Hi. Very kind introduction, as ever, Eddie. Yeah. I've done a lot, haven't I? When you tell me you read out my credits, I think, how have I crammed it all in? I don't know. I haven't slept.
Of course, when I was thinking, all right, who am I going to try to get for this fan cast? You're the first person I thought of. But then I also thought, because I'm doing audio commentaries, I was like, let me also suggest that to him. And you were like, I don't think I can sit through another.
Of the last 4 years, I've watched that film a lot and pulled it apart and discussed it. And I love it. I wouldn't have gone on that journey without loving it. But I just need to let it rest for a little bit, before I go back to it. I just need to kind of be in the thing and be doing other things. But I will, of course, watch it at some point. Yeah, but I just thought, I can't watch it again right now.
There's nothing more fearful than becoming numb to something you love, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
I totally understood when you said that. So here we are, we're fan casting, and so I have everything ready to go. And the way we're approaching this is a little different than, because I've already done Terminator 2. And the way we approached that was a little different because I kind of went off of how you presented in your photo that you sent me. You said that you're coming at this as if you were remaking Aliens in 2025.
Absolutely. Because like you said, how would you recast the film? My first answer is I wouldn't.
Right.
It's so beautifully cast. You go, how would you replace Bishop? I can't replace Bishop. So I had to do this kind of mental leap where I said, okay, what happens if I was remaking it now? And of course, everyone is, they're still around, but they're a bit longer in the tooth. So you probably wouldn't cast Michael Biehn and Sigourney Weaver now. So I had to kind of rethink it that way. And that kind of freed me up a bit. I also had to liberate myself from budget constraints, because it's probably quite an expensive cast I've come up with. I don't know what budget we've got on this remake of Aliens, but it's a good one.
Well, what was the budget on Aliens?
Aliens, it started at 11, went to 13, ended up around about 18.
Okay.
It's hard to pin down budgets from that era. But Gale Ann Hurd said, around about 18 is where they finished, which is relatively low even for then. And certainly relatively low given what film resulted from that money. It's because practicality. Once you're doing practical effects, and Cameron was bringing all his kind of Roger Corman know-how, how to do, how to trick things, how to make use of limits. I think it's an astonishing achievement for the money.
Yeah, and Sigourney Weaver wasn't really there was no the money didn't go really towards the cast, is what.
No, she got $1 million, and she was one of the first women to get $1 million. Okay. And she was obviously their big cast wise. So the rest of the cast, of course, are now beloved, but none of them at that stage were known names at all. Michael Biehn had done the Terminator, which sort of left him, but Bill Paxton was an unknown. All the Marines really were unknowns. Lance Henriksen was done a few things, but wasn't well known. So really, excepting Sigourney Weaver, they were a cast of unknowns. So that kept the cost down.
But I like that you brought that point up, that you were you recast a very expensive just cast.
Yeah, I'm now casting. Yeah, this is not a cast of unknowns.
So, and I'm also approaching it from that point of view, but I'm also, the way I did Terminator 2.
Yeah,
I want to do my fan cast the way that, because we've talked about this before, but Cameron has consistently cast the same actors film to film to film. There's a lot of overlap between his films. He loves using the same people over and over again if he can. And so I kind of approached it that way a little bit. So pretty much all of my casting choices, except for Newt, I think, they are from previous Cameron collaboration. That's how I approached it. Yeah. So having said all of that, we're going to start from the bottom of the list, and we're going to save Ripley for last. So we're going to start with, I believe you have Drake at the bottom.
Yeah.
On yours. So we're going to start with Drake, and I'm going to give you the honors to go first. Let me make sure I got my photo here. All right, perfect. So whenever you say their name, I'm going to pop them up.
Okay, well, Drake was really hard, I thought, in a sense. They were all quite difficult, but Drake was especially hard because not just is Mark Rolston now so synonymous with that part. He's a character that, he's a big guy. He's a sort of dominant personality. Has his kind of very close bond with Vasquez. He's very capable, but has this kind of sense of a dark past. There's a sense of something more to him. So I had to kind of think about that. And although he's physically smaller, the face and the kind of persona that sprang to mind was Jesse Plemons. And most of you thinking, Jesse Plemons? What, he does all that, he's a small guy. But this is the picture, yeah. Jesse Plemons in Civil War, the recent Alex Garland film. If you remember that sequence, he is menacing. He is completely dynamic and charismatic, but in a really menacing way. Like, he knows how to handle himself. He looks like a guy who, understands guns.
Yeah.
And I thought, you wouldn't play him quite the same as the character in Civil War. He would be more likable because this is aliens. But he would have that sort of sense of capability about him, in my version of aliens. He would be a kind of a presence, but maybe not quite so sort of big. Though we would send Jesse to the gym ahead of time. We'll get him bulked up.
No, when you said it, okay, so there's a couple in here where you gave me multiple options, and I'll let you know which one I went with.
Okay.
For the photo. But of course we'll mention both of them. But when you said Jesse Plemons and then you put in the parentheses picture from Civil War, because I don't really know the rest of his, he's not a super big name,
he's sort of a character actually. He's done quite a lot of recent Scorsese. He's a terrific actor, and he's often very funny. But he's kind of plays quite a lot of quirky characters. Right. But as he's got older, he's sort of got this presence about him. I can see why Scorsese really likes him. He's got a real kind of De Niro-like, walks into a scene, doesn't say a lot, but really holds the camera.
Right.
And I think that'd be a good Drake, just to be there and sort of be present.
Right. I thought it was a great choice specifically for the Civil War reference, because I have seen that film and that was an incredibly memorable, menacing scene. Yeah. But of course, like you said, dial back on that. But it kind of inspired me to go towards the direction that I chose. And this, I don't know what film this is from, but maybe you can enlighten me if you've seen the film. But this one was a little more difficult for me to land on, but ultimately I decided to go with, and thanks to this photo, I thought it worked a little better, Mr. Sam Worthington. Yeah, just something about, because of course when I think of him, I think of Avatar, but that's a little hard to kind of correlate because a lot of it is the motion capture, and then I had to start thinking, okay, well, he was also in Salvation, which I've seen, and he has the acting chops. I don't know what film this is from.
I'm not sure. It looks like he's playing like a Southern in the Civil War drama, so I'm not sure.
Right.
I'm gonna have to look that up after this.
But I love the look of him here because I'm so used to seeing him clean shaven, and then something with the beard. Just when I saw that, I was like, perfect. Just that's my Drake. Perfect. It's just, I don't know, just something about him. I don't know that he's the greatest actor of all time, but he is someone that I've become more a fan of thanks to the Avatar sequels and seeing what he's brought to Jake Sully. And so I think he would be perfect for this. And similar to your thing with the budget, I think the cast I've assembled as well is kind of expensive. So, but yeah, no, I thought Sam Worthington would be a cool Drake. Jesse Plemons is and everyone watching, if this is the first fan cast you've seen, this is all for fun and giggles. Like we're not, like like Ian said,
Well,
we're
we
not
do
actually,
not have the power to remake Aliens and cast it ourselves. Yeah.
and you wouldn't like
No.
like you said, if they ever announce an Aliens remake, it's over. So that's our Drake, Jesse Plemons, and Sam Worthington. Of course, let us know down in the comments what you think of these choices, and if you think you have a better one, let us know. Moving on to, who do we have here? Apone.
Well, obviously, Apone is an older guy. Yeah, he needs to be a little bit older than the rest of the cast, the rest of the Marines at least.
Right.
And he needs to talk. It's all about the verbals with Apone. And Al Matthews, had been a drill sergeant. He'd been a sergeant. He'd been to Vietnam. He brought the real thing to Aliens. So he was a very significant piece of casting. And I don't know if you can match that, but I wanted someone who's got a great gift of the voice, who can talk fast, who's to turn on those Sergeant Major vibes, but bring a bit of humor to it as well. Bring a kind of softness beneath the rugged. Everyone in the thing about Apone is they all love him. He's the they don't love Gorman. They love Apone. He's the one they all look to. They give him hell, but clearly there's a close bond with him. So I wanted it to be an actor who could do the fast talking, could do the kind of the shouting and have a bit of fun with that, but also have a warmth and a comedy underneath the surface. So I went for Jamie Foxx because I think Jamie Foxx can really turn it on. I mean, he looks very cool in that photo. We'll look a little bit older, Jamie Foxx now.
Okay.
But I think, you put him in fatigues, and you give him that kind of Sergeant Major vibe. And I think he'd be a good Apone. He would really kind of give it something. And again, it's about presence, isn't it? All of the Marines in Aliens have this extraordinary presence. Like you don't miss any of them. You get them straight away as characters. And I think you need that, and it's a really hard thing to recast. So I'm looking for charisma and kind of instant impact. And I think, imagine a cigar in Jamie Foxx's mouth, the kind of all the kind of armor on him going, come on, suit up, guys, giving Hudson hell, it's all of that. I can just picture Jamie Foxx doing it.
Yeah. Is it also kind of maybe like because I don't know what film that's from, but I almost went with Django Unchained to kind of pull up.
Yeah, he did. I mean, again, my memory now is, but he did a couple of kind of army films, I think, early on in his career, or war-related kind of things, and he fitted in very well. I think that shot you gave me from Miami Vice, the Michael Mann remake of the television series.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and he's done. If you watch, I like Jamie Foxx has got great range. He does the kind of vibey, cool guy routine, of course, that everyone knows. But you watch something like Collateral, another Michael Mann film, and you realize how he can shift character and how he can sort of play texture and levels on things. He's a good actor. So I think, he could really handle the idea of a guy who's been to war, who's seen it all and has heard it all, and is kind of ready and to take charge.
Right. And he's an Oscar winner, right? For
an
Ray.
Oscar winner for Ray. Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot going on with Jamie Foxx. And again, Apone's not a big role. It's only the first half of the movie. And it would cost us a lot of money to get Jamie Foxx in just the first half of the movie. But hey, we're spending the money.
Jesse Plemons was pretty light, and then all of a sudden here comes Jamie Foxx on the cast. So when I approached this, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking drill sergeant kind of material, and there was a couple names. Of course, I mean there's more to the character than just that, but that's when I think of the character, I think of just that kind of aura. And there was two names I was bouncing back and forth, but then when I realized that I was drawing a lot from Avatar, I was like, okay, get away from Avatar, forget Stephen Lang. He has that kind of, he has that under control here. Who's someone that we haven't seen a lot lately that can definitely do this role? He's probably done it before. I'm just not aware. And I went with Ed Harris.
Okay, good casting.
He's got this incredible presence, absolutely incredible presence. Again, have not seen a lot from him. I mean, this I believe is from Westworld.
Yeah.
But he is someone that's, kind of laying low lately. And I think I'd love to see him tackle this role. And I think he's my only cast from The Abyss. So,
Okay. He was also in a great film called The Right Stuff, which I think Cameron really draws from a lot, about the early space race pioneers. So he's got the right stuff.
there we go. The Right Stuff. I've heard of it, but I did not know that Cameron took from it. So
yeah, it's one of those films I think he just loves, and just the general aura of, it's about guys going into space for the first time. It's about pushing the limits. When you watch it, you'll see exactly why Cameron loves it. It's all the things he loves in life, the kind of sense of adventure and pursuing the limits of what's possible and achieving it, bravery under kind of intense pressure. Real Cameron tropes. Yeah.
All right. So there's 2 down. We have 8 to go. We are now covering Gorman.
Gorman. Yeah. Another tricky one, because Gorman requires, a really kind of skillful bit of acting. And I think people don't praise William Hope enough for Aliens. We hate Gorman, and you're meant to hate Gorman, but then you have to come around to Gorman. You have to feel sorry for him a little bit. He's inexperienced. He's foolhardy. He messes things up. He cracks up under fire. But I think there's a genuine portrait in there of someone cracking up. He's not risible in the way that maybe Burke is. He's not manipulative. He just can't handle it. And that kind of vulnerability, I think William Hope brings out really well. So I wanted an actor who has that other side to him, who can seem like they are officer material because they have the kind of bearing, but come with a kind of, not an innocence, but a naivety, or can play naivety. And the face that came to mind was Benedict Cumberbatch for me, obviously doing an American accent, which he's very good at. And just, I think, he's very good at playing slightly unlikable. You've got to see he's alienated from the rest of the Marines. They don't like him. He's kind of been thrust upon them. That he's a greenhorn. He's only done one previous drop. That it's clear from the beginning that he's out of his depth. And I think that's something Benedict Cumberbatch could really capture. I think he's very sort of nuanced actor and will capture that kind of sense of panic brewing in Gorman.
Right. And he's the first of a few that you've cast from the MCU.
Well, yeah, I suppose the MCU does sort of dictate a lot of things now. It's more a case, I think, of the MCU sort of shows you what the modern generation of actors, who they are, in a sense. If you think, who are the kind of the big stars of the moment? Well, they're the people in the MCU. But it wasn't sort of deliberate. It wasn't like, I'm going to steal everybody from the MCU. But
right.
It's true.
It's just a few. It just so happens that a bunch of them, and I guess even you can make an argument, Jamie Foxx, with the whole Amazing Spider-Man 2 connection, even though that's not MCU though. But
well, he's sort of in, it's kind of, it's borderline.
Right? He's in No Way Home, right? He's in No Way Home.
He is.
Yeah. So interesting. Yeah, interesting. When I read Benedict Cumberbatch, I was like, okay, all right, because he's out of, I think, all of them. Maybe Jesse Plemons rivals him. I've seen a lot of Jamie Foxx stuff. I have not seen a ton of Benedict Cumberbatch stuff. So I just kind of went in with the idea and the image of Doctor Strange. And
he's very good at playing sort of awkward characters who are sort of uncomfortable in their situations.
Okay.
He's very good at that. He did a very popular version of Sherlock on British TV.
Yes.
And which is sort of done in contemporary times. But he made him a difficult character. He wasn't like a likable Sherlock. He was a man sort of tortured by his brain and needing to solve puzzles. And although Gorman isn't quite like that, there is something tortured about Gorman that he has to redeem himself, of course, by the end of the film. So you've got to go on a bit of a journey with Gorman.
Right.
That they don't like him, but the audience kind of do a little bit. We haven't rejected him. We know how he's failed, but we haven't rejected him like the others have.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because this is how I approached it. Him and Vasquez, they're the pair, right? Kind of throughout the film.
Well, obviously Drake and Vasquez are the friends, but in a sense, the journey, Vasquez blames Gorman for her friend dying,
Okay.
in the nest for it all going wrong. So she focuses her animosity on Gorman, and then there is, as you're right, there's that trajectory where by the end it's Gorman who goes back for Vasquez, and they die together. So it's a kind of forgiveness that happens in that moment. It's kind of very Cameron. It's kind of an emotional climax of both their stories.
Right, right. So when I approached it, I thought, okay, who do I want to see as a pair towards the end, sacrificing themselves together? Again, somebody that is obviously now with the Avatar films is kind of back in the forefront here, but very much a character actor, great in films like Sunshine, and he was on Fear of the Walking Dead. Cliff Curtis. I just love this guy. I love anytime anytime I know that he's a part of anything, I'm just a little more interested in it. Again, Sunshine, I have to shout out that film from Danny Boyle. That's just, man, I love that film, and I love him in that film. And everything you said about Gorman, I can see Cliff bringing to it. Because again, he is personally, I think Cliff Curtis is pretty underrated in terms of how we think of popular actors today, and someone we don't really name drop a whole lot is Cliff Curtis. So I would love to see him tackle this role, and just something about him. I think this is from Fear of the Walking Dead, so he has this he can have that kind of look, that kind of rugged look, because he's also played some pretty high profile characters, but this is the look that I would go for Gorman. So, but no, I personally, I think Benedict Cumberbatch is a little more interesting, because he's in The Imitation Game, right?
Yeah.
And that film, I just remember it was sort of like a storm when it came to The Imitation Game. So he has the chops for sure. So, but moving on to someone that I'm very interested in, and when I read your choice here for Vasquez, I was like, okay, this is going to be interesting, because I have seen this film. She was phenomenal in it. So tell us who you cast for Vasquez.
Again, I thought Vasquez was so hard because Jack Goldstein really owns that part, more than some of these other guys. Vasquez and Jack Goldstein are just one and the same, And so this was really hard. So in a sense, what I did was I reworked the character of Vasquez a little bit. I thought, well, I'll change Vasquez, but keep the vibe in the same realm. So I've sort of calibrated Vasquez as a indigenous American character rather than Latino. But again, the same qualities, tough as boots, capable, got a very short fuse, and clearly been through a lot of darkness before she's got to LV-426. And once I'd kind of done the thinking, there was only one name, and it's Amber Midthunder from the Prey movie. She also has she was in Legion. Do you remember that Marvel series? Quite cool series from a few years ago. So she has a kind of comic book connections as well. But she is just someone who has the same kind of chops as Jeanette Goldstein, as Vasquez in the film. She is really good at action. She's someone you just look at and think you are physically capable. And is just a great actress as well. Got a real intensity about her. And I think she'd be a terrific version of Vasquez. She wouldn't be the same one. So it's not really a case of recasting, but it's doing a kind of new version of the character.
Yes. That's, I think, potentially, and I'm interested to see if everyone agrees with me, I think that's potentially the strongest right now that you've cast so far. To me, it's just, and again, the Prey movie, she's done other things, but that film, I think, really kind of, maybe her name isn't out there. Like when I read Amber Midthunder, I had to Google it. But when I saw that image pop up, I was like, oh, Prey. So a lot of people have seen that film, and she was phenomenal in it, and just definitely brings the Vasquez qualities.
Yeah, imagine if you cut her hair quite short, you put her in military fatigues, you bulk her up a little bit like Jesse, we'll take her to the gym. I'm sure she's pretty fit as it is. And you would get it. You would get that kind of angry presence straight away.
Right. perfect casting. Now for mine, I kept Vasquez as she is in the film and as she is in, you know, the novels and all that stuff. And I don't know, do you watch Michael Bean's podcast that he has?
I've not seen it. No, I've heard of it, but
because he had Jeanette Goldstein on, and they talked a little bit about, and I'm curious how you feel about this before I show you who I had. They talked a little bit about how it was the 80s, so there was a little more forgiveness here. But of course, Jeanette Goldstein really isn't.
No, she's a Jewish lady. Yeah,
exactly. And she's portraying someone of a totally different. And she made a good point. You know, she's, you know, it was the 80s. And I was just an actor putting on a different skin. I was just like, that's what acting was to me. That's what it meant, being somebody completely different. And she, you know, when you see her, of course, in Titanic, she's the Irish mom, and
yeah, she's not Irish.
Right.
Yeah, it's something we tackle in the documentary a little bit, and we do talk about it in the sense that yes, if you did that today, it would be frowned on, but actually, the other way of looking at it is that character was so strong and so foregrounded the idea of a female Latino heroine and made her so present that it did a lot of good as well. You know, it really, I think people took away from that. I think people were surprised to discover that Jeanette Goldstein wasn't Latino.
Yeah, same.
But I think you can forgive it, maybe what would be probably incorrect now, because I think it just made that character really credible. It made that character achieve a lot, I think, at the time. I think when you discuss Aliens as a kind of feminist film, a lot of that feminism is written into just the way these characters are and the way they are present. And perhaps more than even Ripley, it's Vasquez that gives you that. You do not question her abilities for 1 second. You think, who do I want out of those Marines, you know, front and center? You give Vasquez, you know, above Hicks, you know, that's the one I want on my back, you know, because she just looks and seems capable. And I think that's really down to Jeanette Goldstein's performance.
Right. And she goes to all the conventions. I don't think she's getting many people coming up to her, you know, hating on her. So, but it is
beloved. Yeah.
It's beloved. And it's a very interesting, which is why I was happy that they even brought it up on Michael's podcast, the whole kind of then versus now, how you would approach it. So with that in mind and thinking, okay, who has Cameron worked with that does fall into at least way closer than Jeanette Goldstein does.
Yeah.
I had to really kind of, I was going through the cast list and I was like, oh my God, I totally forgot she's in this. It's another Avatar, but it's only the first one. We're talking Michelle Rodriguez.
Ah, yeah.
First of all, she's made herself known in the action films. She's in so many of those Fast and Furious movies. Obviously the first Avatar, she does die at the end of it, but you know, she's perfect in that role, almost kind of an adjacent kind of role to Vasquez. Like you can kind of see similarities between the two characters in a way. So when I realized and remembered Michelle Rodriguez was a Cameron collaborator, it just made total sense. Okay, Michelle Rodriguez, you're perfect. And I think she would work pretty well with the whole Gorman working next to Cliff Curtis. I think that would be an interesting screen duo to see them, you know, sacrifice and all that stuff. So Michelle Rodriguez, that's who I'm going with. I think that is the end of my Avatar, or no, there's one other Avatar connection and then that's it. So, all right, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, on to our fifth one here. And we are going with Hudson.
Yeah, Hudson again was just like, how do you replace Bill Paxton? Yeah. The guy just is that role. And so I wanted an energy like his. I wanted that kind of, you know, what Bill Paxton has is he has a kind of, he's a good looking guy, actually. And he's got kind of a movie star like quality to him in a very traditional way. He looks like he could have been in films in the 50s and 60s. He's got that kind of old Hollywoodness about him, but this wonderful kind of rather self-mocking sensibility about him that makes him very, very likable. I thought, well, who has got movie star presence but has a real likability about him? And I came up with Chris Evans. Now, Chris Evans obviously is a big star, but I think he would be a really good Hudson. I think it would give him another kind of way of being the guy who panics and not just being the guy who can do it. And I'm turning Captain America into a coward. I know, but they're actors. And I just think he's a funny guy, Chris Evans. He's got a great sort of comic sensibility about him, and I think he's also very good in kind of dude banter situations. The MCU obviously does give you a lot of that. So I think a lot of what Hudson is about is riling up his fellow Marines. And I think Chris Evans would be great at just, getting everyone going around him and driving Jamie Foxx mad as Apone, but then being super heroic at the end, having his great going down in a blaze of glory moment as well.
Of course. I want to highlight your comment of Bill Paxton's a very good looking guy. I want to ask you, what do you think is his best on-screen look, where he looked his absolute best?
All right.
Because I have my answer.
I'd maybe go with Twisters. He's kind of very cool in, but I mean, you might say he's got an earthiness in Twisters. That's a good question. Well, it's not Terminator, is it?
Well, because that's the one I was going to say. He is ugly as all get out.
he's like a chameleon, Simple Plan. He looks very cool, but again, he's playing an earthy guy again. He had that ability to play kind of quite ordinary guys, but yet still have the movie star kind of presence about him. What is your answer to this?
Personally, I think he looked his absolute best in Titanic as Brock. It's just that because he has he has a little stubble on his face. He's not, completely clean shaven. He's got a little stubble coming through. He's got that, I don't know what that hair is. It's almost adjacent to what's going on in Twister.
Yeah.
But it's just a little longer. It's like there's almost like a blonde in there. I don't know if they did something there. And of course, he's got that little sunburnt nose. It's just, personally, I think that's the best he's ever looked in any film ever is Titanic. And it just kind of works for that, that little relationship that him and Cameron's future wife kind of have, that little flirty thing going on there. So I totally get it. But yeah, no, Terminator, he's absolutely dreadful looking. And hopefully that style never comes back, even though they tried to duplicate it in Genesis. But personally, Chris Evans, again, another, because he's in Sunshine. He's a phenomenal actor. Again, he's really kind of been taken over by the MCU, but I think people tend to forget that he can do other things, right? Snowpiercer and whatnot. So when I approached this, because I was also in that same boat, how do you replace Bill Paxton? Well, one, you don't. Two, who is someone that can do the, because assuming that we're keeping the script the same, that can do these, kind of iconic goofball lines, game over, man, and all that stuff, but also have that presence. And immediately I thought, okay, let's make him a little older, not super old, but let's go Billy Zane. I think Billy Zane, first of all, his name is Zany. Second of all, you think of something like the Phantom.
Yeah.
Right. So he can do that really kind of oddball, just what the heck, but he's also capable of the action. He's in the Scorpion King, right?
Yeah.
Right. So he's done that. He's kind of covered a lot of ground. Of course, he's in Titanic. He has that vile role in Titanic, but this is another actor I don't think we talk a whole lot about in 2025. Billy Zane. I would love to see him. Maybe, I think in this photo he has a bald head. Maybe, I don't know, give him a little hair, and see what happens. I would love to see Billy Zane say, "It's game over, man."
He's got that kind of slightly over the topness as well. He's capable of playing to the moment. In Titanic, he really does the villain very well. It's almost twiddling his mustaches, isn't it? He's so villainous. Yes. But I think he understands when you've got to grandstand a little bit, for the sake of the film.
So that's who I'm casting. Now, this next one, you gave me two options here. I'm going to tell you who I didn't go with. And that was Robert Downey Jr. One, because I thought we have too much MCU going on here, and I think he's really going to bloat the budget at this point.
Yeah, we can't afford him.
So, but when you gave me the other option, it just worked perfectly, because I think Bishop needs to have that quality of he's not reading as a human. He doesn't read as a human. And this actor, to me, does not read as a human.
Well, first of all, I thought Robert Downey Jr. is the kind of guy who could really go for it, playing an android. You know, he could really, in that kind of Fassbender way that Fassbender does in the other Aliens films. You know, he's got that capability of exploring the role. But I get you that he's probably a bit expensive for our needs. So Rami Malek just spoke to me. Yeah, someone who has a slightly, you know, off-key quality to him that he shares with Lance Henriksen and a lot of the actors, in fact, who've played the kind of the various androids in the films. It's, you know, it's a great gift. Ian Holm has it, and his ability just to, and the skill of playing the androids, I think, is you don't push it too hard. You just make it about 10 degrees off. Yeah, and I love the stuff. You know, Lance Henriksen, you know, really emphasized the fact that he played Bishop as a 12-year-old boy, basically, as an orphan boy who doesn't quite understand what the adults are talking about. Why are you frightened of me? Why would you, you know, I'm here to serve. That's all I am. You know, an innocent. He doesn't quite get the kind of serious emotions around him. So I think Rami Malek could do that very well. Plus, he has that kind of facial, you know, expression that he could freeze it all, just let the eyes do the work. And you really get a sense of what's going on underneath the surface there. Can I really trust you or not? You know, but it's, you know, Bishop has it's a difficult role, Bishop, in the sense that for 3/4 of the film, you don't trust him and you're waiting for some kind of twist to come out. And the twist is that he has a heart. You know, the twist is that he's a good guy. And in fact, he's one of the saviors of the day, which is really from the point where he goes into the tunnel onwards. And it's a great Cameron-like twist. You know, it really is the prelude to Terminator 2, if you think about it. It's how he then went and did Terminator 2 with the Arnie character, with the T-800. So I think you require that character to emerge from his weirdness. So we've got to warm him up a little bit by the end. We've got to have something. Still a bit off, you know, you did well, Bishop, did I? You know, you've got to have that kind of slightly childish mentality. But, you know, we've seen Rami Malek play Freddie Mercury. We've seen him do big kind of booming performances as well as the kind of slightly off-kilter ones. So I think he could do that thing where you just, right, you're 10% off and you bring it down to about 7 degrees off, but you never wholly kind of bring him to humanity. You always emphasize that he's a bit weird, you know, he's not human.
Yeah, when I read Rami Malek, I was like, please tell me. I know he hasn't, but please let me just find like he was a background extra in a Cameron film, because I wanted to copy and paste this one. I really wanted to copy and paste. I think this and Vasquez are the strongest that you've cast so far. It's just it perfectly reads what I think of the character. And Lord knows after The Amateur, he needs a a bigger hit on his hands. So, but unfortunately, Rami and Cameron have not crossed paths yet, maybe in a future Avatar film. So I had to go with somebody, and I was thinking, okay, I've covered Titanic, but have I really covered everybody out of Titanic? I think there might be somebody I'm missing. And so I went back, and there was a character that stood out to me. Again, not to the degree of Rami, but to a degree that read, okay, maybe I could see him playing an android, because he has a certain look, and he maybe even has the same kind of extended forehead. And I'm talking Victor Garber.
Okay.
I could totally see him playing, like, just right here. Of course, we know that he's not an android here, but I can totally see this exact look right here for the android of Bishop. To me, it just reads, he has the chops. I don't know what he's doing right now, but we need to get him in this film. We need to give him the role. It fits perfectly. I don't know. How do you feel about it? This is what I'm curious how you feel.
Yeah, it's a good choice. It would probably play a little older. Obviously, it'd play the character more as a kind of old butler type rather than the kind of boyishness that's in the Henriksen version. But I get it. I mean, thinking about it, yeah, Billy Zane could have done it as well. You could have put Billy Zane into that role as well. Yeah, because he has a kind of slightly removed quality about him. It's a very difficult role to cast in the sense that you've got to have somebody already, you know, just off. I think Benedict Cumberbatch might have been movable into that part. You know, you're going to mix things around because he has that slightly edgy, unnerving quality to him, where you're not entirely sure what he's thinking.
Right.
But yeah, good choice from you. Good choice. Unusual.
Unusual, yeah. That's what I wanted. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
I think Victor Garber is kind of left of center here, and it'll throw some people. Now this next one's the interesting one. I think again, let me see if you gave me two options here. No, oh yeah, wait, yeah, you did. Okay, you gave me two options for Burke. I'll tell you who I did not choose. I did not choose again for the MCU connection, Paul
Right.
Rudd.
Okay.
No Paul Rudd, because I don't know that I can see him playing this role. Maybe you can convince me otherwise.
Well, I just think, the reason they cast Paul Reiser originally was he was a stand-up comedian at the time. And he'd been in very few movies. He'd been in Beverly Hills Cop, I think, as a comic character. And Cameron liked the idea that he's a little goofy. And the goofy would probably win over the audience. Hey, I'm an okay guy. You can trust me. I'm an okay guy, he says very early on. And he's a bit goofy, like going out to the planet. He's got the wrong gear on, and he's got his Filofax with him. And so, you don't quite trust him, but you're kind of warm to him a little bit. It's sort of the opposite of Gorman and Bishop in a way. It's like you start not liking them, you like them, but Burke's on a different journey. But I think the key to Burke is that he's still a human being. He's not a callous kind of corporate villain. He's just a guy who's trying to make, a fast one. He's trying to, with hideous results, but has committed treachery on a dreadful level. But you kind of know what's going on with him. You kind of get it. He's an 80s guy. He's a weasel. And I think Rudd could do weasel. I think, you'd be slightly less of the smart ass guy and a bit more of the kind of, he's kind of likable, but a bit on edge, and a guy in the wrong place. And I think you get that from him as in the Ant-Man. He's kind of the odd one out, almost. And I think Cameron liked that about Paul Reiser. He didn't look like he belonged here, right, amongst all these other people. He didn't look at all like he was going to survive. So I had two options, and my other option, perhaps we can all see a bit better, because he's proved with Severance that he has very good serious acting chops. He's got great comedy chops and many different comedy things. He's done Parks and Rec, but he's something quite geeky about him, and I think that would lend itself well to Burke, and that's Adam Scott. And I think he would just imagine him in a body warmer, imagine him with the collars up, and doing a lot of yapping, in sort of Ripley's ear, but secretly conniving. Always with that, the key about Burke is that he's nervous. He's always permanently nervy. Like he's someone who's been promoted ahead of his time. Always trying to prove himself. Like those young guys in corporate firms, the suit doesn't quite fit. He's really trying to prove himself. And I think Adam Scott would get that kind of itchy quality about Burke, that he's a guy who's aspiring to something, has made a very bad call, Burke. It's a bad call, and that's the guy who would do it.
Yeah, I haven't seen Severance, but just when I pulled up that image, because I've heard of Adam Scott, I was like, okay, just out of the two, because I purposefully don't get into the MCU, because I just at this point there's so much going on in there, and I just can't even focus on all of that. So Ant-Man aside, Paul Rudd, I just always think of comedies. I just think of This Is 40, Knocked Up, Role Models, just endless comedies. I don't know that I've seen him do anything that would give me you gave a very good argument, but I've never seen him do anything outside of that comfort zone.
He's quite in kind of This Is 40 and Knocked Up. He's really irritates his wife. There's something quite annoying about him. It's beautifully judged in comedy terms, and he's very good at just taking the character to the point where you think, I don't like you anymore. You're just a jerk. And then he brings it back a little bit, so you don't quite hate him. So he's quite capable of sort of pushing the kind of good-natured banter to the point where he becomes a jerk. And I think that would work with Burke. He gets a bit more than a jerk, but he would have that. But maybe Adam Scott is the better choice.
Yeah, just out of the two, I was like, let's go Adam Scott. Again, we've got all these MCU people. They're probably not even going to be able to make their schedules work.
No.
So, let's give Adam another job here. Now for me, you're gonna have to forgive this one a little bit because I don't know that this actor is necessarily known for if we're approaching it with Cameron's, I want this guy to, be trustworthy. I don't know that necessarily the choice I've chosen here reads trustworthy right out of the gate, but I think acting, right? You have to have your chops extended. You need to work on your range. So somebody that I thought, okay, who's one of the best villains that Cameron has ever cast? Robert Patrick. I want to see him literally in this exact, like, whatever this is, someone let me know, whatever this role is right here, this suit and tie, this look right here. This is who I want for Burke. It's just personally, I think he needs to work on, because when we see Robert Patrick, I think we're just, from T2 to Wayne's World to Last Action Hero to T2 3D, we're just T1000, T1000, T1000. But I think he has more to him. Again, he's kind of limited in terms of what he's played through his career. He's always been kind of cast as the, even in his like little stint with The Walking Dead, I'm pretty sure he was a villain on that show. So, but we need to take him out of that for a little bit because ultimately Burke is a villain. So it does work. But if we want to follow the script, then we're going to have him, kind of work on his likability out of the gate. But I don't know, personally, just that image, whatever that is, I just, I want to see him work on the character of Burke. So now this next one, for yours, I love it. For mine, again, it's a little bit of stunt casting. So
Right. Okay.
I'm curious what you're going to think about it, but who did you choose for?
Well, it's slightly tricky because I think I've cast a little young compared to some of the actors around him. But I think he would make a great Hicks. The key to Hicks is that he's present, but he's quiet. And he has this kind of wonderful, quiet authority about him. Every time there are polls about who is, the one character you want to be in Aliens, Hicks always wins. Fans just love Hicks. There's a presence that Michael Biehn brought to that role that has become iconic, I think. And it's based on a kind of old Western style character, the silent sort of hero in a Western who sort of comes into town and has a kind of cool, but yet winning quality that you trust, his sense of authority. So he's a man of few words, but a great sense of being able to deal with things. And also, what I love, and Michael Biehn talks about this, is that he understands straight away that Ripley is the commander. Once she takes over in the film, once the nest sequence has happened and all hell has broken loose, and Ripley is effectively just taking command of the mission. It's Hicks that gets that. Hicks essentially is in command, but he looks to Ripley and goes, "You know better than I do. You are the natural leader, but I am the guy who's going to back you up. Let's head to orbit and just nuke them from orbit." A lovely romantic moment where he backs her up. So it's a tricky role, and I wanted that kind of nobility. So I cast Glenn Powell. Now, Glenn Powell has played kind of wiseacres and loudmouths, and probably would be a pretty good Hudson as well if you wanted to use him that way. But I think if we stripped away the kind of the comedy and the kind of smart alegory of Glenn Powell and go, you've got to play it straighter. You've just got to be the good-looking guy who just has this real kind of command about him. And you've got to have this great relationship with Ripley, and you've got to essentially be the male hero of the film. You become, you've got to be the father figure of this family unit that forms with Newt. I think Glenn Powell could do that. I think there's something about him. We talked about movie star quality earlier on. I think he definitely has that movie star quality. It seems mad to me that Michael Biehn never became an A-list movie star. He had such a strong start, and then why didn't that go on to become a major star across different films? Because he had it. He had this magnetism about him. That's really written into the DNA of Hicks. And I think Glenn Powell could do that as well.
I think because I avidly listen to his podcast. I think he's talked a little bit about it, how I don't know if it necessarily affected him becoming a movie star, but he always hated he's talked about how he always hated like when you have a film out and you have to do the press and you have to do all this. I don't know that affected it. But he's never been a fan of doing the press tours and all that stuff when it comes to promoting the films. So it might have played a part in it. You know, maybe he took a step back and was like, okay, I'm just not into this anymore. But no, I agree. Michael Biehn definitely should have became much bigger than he was. And Glenn Powell, everybody agrees. I mean, he's even in the same photo with him a bunch of times. He's the next Tom Cruise, right? A lot of people say that.
I think he's kind of different though. He's got that slight, no offense to Tom Cruise, there's something slightly warmer about Glenn Powell than Tom Cruise. You know, I love Tom. You know, I'll go and watch his movies. Don't get me wrong, he's the biggest movie star in the world. But Glenn Powell has that. He's charming. You know, he has this like George Clooney-ness, that he's got these kind of charming qualities to him that will make him a great romantic comedy lead. He'll be able to do a lot of those, and he'll mix it up a lot more, I think. And again, he's a little bit old school. He's a little bit Cary Grant. You know, he's got a little bit of that kind of sense of an old movie star that you might just go and see a movie, you know, in a few years' time, just because he's in it. You won't care what it is. You know, if he plays it right, you'll go, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do the Glenn Powell thing.
My girlfriend Haley, we saw him in Anyone But You. She absolutely could not stand that film. Neither could I. I was not a fan of that film. She hated Glenn Powell's character. Then we saw Twisters, and that film made her a fan of him. So I don't know if it's just the look that
you're kind of meant to hate him a bit in Anyone But You, aren't you? The point is that the two most irritating people in the world are going to come together, which is kind of the joke.
Right.
Yeah, I think, you know, he has this ability to be smug, which I think is the characters he's playing. But at the end of Twister, when he sort of turns it off and he genuinely tries, you know, he's only there to help her. That's Hicks. You know, that's the Hicks character emerging there, isn't it? That I'm with you. You know, let's do it. And that, you know, the romance is forming, but not explicitly. It's kind of very Aliens, that bit of that movie in their relationship. So yeah, I think he can do it.
I do too. And out of the two choices here, this is probably the one we're going to end up going with, because I did say this one is the stunt casting, because, and maybe it's been done in the past. I'm struggling to think of an I don't know what the word is, of a what am I trying to say? I'm struggling to think of when it has been done before and then it happened again. Like a remake, when they do a remake. And so I'm pretty sure this has happened at least once or twice in Hollywood history. But this is probably the one you have to give the most kind of leeway to, because again, it is age we're looking at here, and we are casting in 2025. I went with one of the more recent projects they've done, but I want to see him do it again. I want to see Biehn come back to the role. I want to see Michael Biehn come back to the role. One, he's begging for work. He's always on his podcast talking about, please give me roles. He has something coming out with Adam Wingard this year. So, but he's not been used a lot. This is from his stint on The Walking Dead. It was a 1-episode thing. So he's obviously aged quite a bit, but I think I want to see what he brings to that role. So can you think of, now that you know what I'm going for here, can you think of another instance where they've remade a film and they brought somebody from the original to the remake?
Oh God, there must be examples of this.
There has to be, right?
Yeah. Now you got me. Yeah, there's got to be. They've just done the same thing again. They've sort of rebooted it, but with the same people.
Right.
One of the same people.
I'm struggling to think of it too, but
I mean, you can argue when Sean Connery did Never Say Never Again, it's effectively a remake of Thunderball.
There you go.
And that's obviously Sean Connery back in the lead role, a lot older. And you can argue it didn't work so well, but that was a version of that, certainly.
Do you like this, or are you like, Eddie, you're mad?
It's a little, I don't know. It will put a very different complexion on the character, I think. Seeing him old. Certainly, it depends on who we cast as Ripley. Would we have to ditch the romance, and how would that character work?
Right.
Because he's a young, he's a young, he's a young colonel. Whatever, he's not even a colonel, is he? But he's a young trooper in the film, and although you sense he's very experienced and very capable, and has that kind of calmness under fire, his youth is still very present in the original film. So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
It would be interesting. It would be
Yeah.
really interesting, considering also Michael, I forget what year it was, but he had a stroke, and it really kind of affected his speech and everything. So obviously we're not going for a carbon copy, but I would love to see him just, again, stunt casting. And again, I think that would really get people to go see the film that would be hesitant, like, oh God, we're doing aliens again. No, Michael Bihn's in it again. So that would drive the box office up, I think. So that's the only stunt casting I did for this.
Okay.
So, now next, Newt. This one was really difficult to think because I'm not very familiar with child actors.
Very, very hard. Essentially, you would probably want to cast an unknown, because that's what they did with Carrie Henn. She'd never acted before, never acted again. It was her one and done. And she had such a kind of innocence, yet a real inner strength about her that made Newt terrific. I mean, she was such a really kind of intuitive young lady when she was on the set. Essentially, she understood straight away what James Cameron was, the guy shaping the story. So really, all she did was obey James Cameron. She was his best actor on the thing. He'd always do something, she did it implicitly and perfectly. He was absolutely, he could guide what she did, but she would bring stuff to it as well. There's a famous sequence she talks about where, they did the bit where the alien rises out of the water and he's going to, when she's underneath the grate, everyone knows it. They just on the day, and Cameron goes, "Oh, why don't you try a scream?" And she just let out this scream that just went on, and they didn't cut for ages, screaming and screaming. And then they finally said cut, and Cameron says, everyone's gone quiet on set, and Cameron just goes, "We're going to use that. Why is that?" So she could bring stuff to it, Carrie Henn. It's really difficult because you want a kind of a naivety and an innocent. You want to kind of untouched, but that wouldn't work because we don't know who they are. So I kind of thought long and hard, and I thought she's probably too old now. Actually, she's probably grown up to the point where she's too old to play Newt. But if we can go back to the point where she first did Skeleton Crew, the Star Wars TV series, it's the character's Ryan, but it's Kira Armstrong.
And that's her in Firestarter.
Firestarter. She was in Firestarter, and she's got a real spark as a child, and she's feisty, which I think is part of Newt. I mean, Newt survived for 2 weeks, in LV-46 and had his hope. So she's got to have something about her where you think, she's got strength. And she's a mini Ripley, she's a survivor. So, she's the only other character who knows what they're facing. It's, forget the Marines, it's Ripley and Newt who know what's going on. And I think she could bring that to it. I've not seen her an awful lot, but she's a strong actress in terms of, Skeleton Crew was mixed. I thought she gave it something.
I had no clue who this was. When I looked it up and Firestarter came up, just that image alone is what sold me on it. I was like, okay, this almost looks like a copy and paste of Newt in a way. like it literally looks like maybe her identical twin if you're just going off of your pure memory.
Yeah.
So so I love that choice. I struggled here, so I had to go to Haley, my girlfriend. I was like, who's somebody that you might think would work well here? And she said, okay, the one that comes to mind is from, and it is very recent, the Five Nights at Freddy's movie. Her name is Piper Rubio. And she's up and coming. She's, very good at portraying that, like this is kind of literally a similar scene that we're like, hiding from the animatronics, and she can definitely portray the horror. We might have to work on the other abilities in terms of acting, but she's definitely got that at least going for her. And a little different in terms of look from what we're used to with Newt. So I was like, okay, that's a good choice. Piper Rubio. Let's go
Yeah.
with it. Five Nights at Freddy's. That works. That'll sell. So that's our newts. And last but not least, we saved the best for last. Again, a perfect choice from you. And I actually have the image from the film, so it's going to work perfectly. So who did you cast as the one and only Ripley?
Well, again, this is the most sacrilegious of them all. How do you recast Ripley? Because it's so synonymous with Sigourney Weaver. But I wanted someone who would bring that same intelligence that Sigourney Weaver has, that she really created a reality of Ripley and all the different guises, across the different films. And she was a real sense of a human being. So there was nothing super heroic about her. She was the reluctant hero, but had something in her. She has that talent. When under pressure, she deals with it. She's the exact person you want around. Listen to Ripley as advice you should always take in any alien situation, because she gets it, And I wanted that. So I wanted that intelligence, and I wanted that real humanity about her, but mixed with an inner strength and an action heroine chops. So I went for Mary Poppins, and of course, Emily Blunt. Now, she does have two sides to her career. She has the kind of Mary Poppins and the musical side. But if you think of Edge of Tomorrow, and you think of the Quiet Place movies, you get a real idea of, she could be Ripley. She is super cool in Edge of Tomorrow. She's
Cool.
So cool in that. And really kind of determined. And I loved her kind of the way she sort of just knocks back crews all the time and gets it. She's so exciting in that film. But then you go to The Quiet Place, and you get a real sense of that kind of relationship you could have with Newt, the kind of the family person, but absolute strength and enormous complexity of fully formed character dealing with absolute crisis. And I think that's what you need with Ripley. The key to Ripley is her humanity, is that she represents the best of humanity. And she's got a quirk, so she's awkward. She's an uneasy, difficult person as well. She's not the most likable person in any of the Aliens films, but she is someone who will not drown under her trauma. That she will rise to it, and she has to save Newt, and I think Emily Blunt could do that.
Absolutely, and of course, her and Glenn Powell, I think. Definitely.
Yeah, that works, doesn't it? That works.
It works.
Yeah. You can see they would be a bit awkward. Yeah, I think, it kind of works, my cast. It's very
It definitely works with your cast. We might have to, like you said, rework it just a tad. We might have to do a couple script changes. But no, of course, when you say Emily Blunt, I think of Edge of Tomorrow. And first and foremost, hopefully we do get that long-awaited sequel. I think I want to see her back in that role. And I always think of the when she's doing the push-up, right? That's the iconic image we always think of when she does that push-up. So she's got that strength, and obviously she's one of the best that we have working today, so she could definitely do it. No offense to Sigourney, she's always going to be Ripley, but Emily Blunt for the remake. Mine, again, I had to go with somebody that fit all your criteria, somebody that in Cameron films, plural, has shown an incredible strength. And even the image I have here. But considering I cast Michael Biehn, let me know when I pull this up here if you think it works or not. We're going Zoe Saldana.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that.
You see it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So again, a little bit different than what we're used to seeing with Ripley. We've kind of, I know with Apone, I kind of went out of the normal here, but again, Ripley, I don't know, just something about Zoe. And now that she, won her Oscar, she's going to be a little harder to get, a little harder for this film, but I think we can convince her. And just another incredibly iconic, heroine for her to play. And she's, obviously with Natiri, she's shown so much that she can do it, and through motion capture she's shown that. So I think she can 100% work as Ripley. But if I had to pick out of the two, I think, I don't know, maybe Emily Blunt is the stronger choice. So that's that. That is our fan cast right there. You let us know, everybody that's watching, listening, please. Do you think we messed up? Do you think we cast wrong? I'm very curious to see what other people would put in these roles, because again, it's really hard, especially when I did Terminator 2, because Aliens, I've told you before, I'm a little more removed from Aliens. I still love it, but I never really grew up with Aliens the way I grew up with Terminator. So when I had to do the T2 fan cast and recast Arnold, that seemed impossible to me to try to put anybody in that role. And when I was doing Aliens, I was like, my one rule: do not put Arnold in any of these roles. Keep Arnold away from Aliens.
Yeah, he just kind of unbalance it a little bit, wouldn't he?
He would.
It'd be interesting, but it'd be a different film,
100%. I'm still holding out hope that him and Cameron do one final thing before one of them go. So, but yeah, so let us know down in the comments, what do you think of the fan cast? And of course, what do you have coming up before we wrap this up? You have the Aliens Expanded, and you have the Thing Expanded. Any books?
I might be doing a book on Sofia Coppola, and we might be doing like an Aliens Expanded book down the line. We're looking at doing that. So sort of, various permutations you can get, so inexhaustible subject.
Of course. Yeah, absolutely. And I remember talking to you about Sofia Coppola, so that's exciting that you're going in that direction. I'm still holding out on M. Night. Yeah. It's true. You want, those kind of books that I do, they need a particular kind of career that's very distinctive. And I think she's got that. It's 9 films, and she's got a very definite style that's worth looking at. I love her films because they're calm and they're kind of slow motion and have a kind of relaxed feel. So, when you're done with your kind of high octane thrillers and action movies, it's really nice to put a Sofia Coppola film on and to let it wash over you. I love it. And I love when you come on the podcast. So thank you for coming back. And you're always welcome back here. I love having you. So everybody, thank you for watching, listening. And at the end of every episode, like I always say, go watch a Cameron film.